All right, let's talk about the fixer. You know the type, right? The person who has a solution for literally everything. But have you ever wondered what's really going on under the hood? What actually drives them? Well, we're going to get right into the psychology of it all.
I want you to picture someone. Who's the first person you call when everything just falls apart? That person who doesn't panic, they don't freak out, they just get this laser focus. We all have someone like that in our lives, don't we?
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break down the 7 core psychological reasons that make a fixer, well, a fixer. But it's not all about superpowers. We're also going to look at the flip side, the hidden, and sometimes pretty heavy, price they pay for always being the one with the answers.
Okay, so first up, what exactly is this go-to problem solver? You can think of them as the eye of the hurricane, right? The calm center when everything else is just spinning out of control. They're the one everyone turns to when the going gets tough.
And their characteristics are super clear. When things go wrong, they don't panic. They don't get overwhelmed. They don't sit around waiting for someone to tell them what to do. Nope, they just see the problem and their brain has one setting: fix it.
But where does that instinct even come from? I mean, people aren't just born this way, right? So let's dig into that. Let's see how this super capable person gets made. Because it almost always starts way back, when they're young.
And this really maps it out perfectly. It usually kicks off with some kind of challenge early in life. Maybe they were the oldest kid who always had to step up, or maybe their parents were just overwhelmed, so they had to learn to be the adult in the room. Pretty soon, that problem-solving thing isn't just something they do, it's automatic. It's a habit born out of necessity. And just like that, they become the reliable one. And that title comes with this deep, deep-seated feeling that it's their job to keep everything stable for everyone else.
Okay, so let's get into their head for a minute. What is actually going on up there? Because this isn't just about what they do, it's about how they think. We're talking about a mind that is fundamentally built for one thing: control.
And here's the absolute key. At its core, fixing things is all about managing their own internal stress. See, problems create chaos, they create uncertainty, and that feeling is, well, it's incredibly uncomfortable. So for a fixer, solving that problem isn't just about fixing the outside world. It's about restoring order inside their own head. It's how they take all that wild, messy chaos and make it manageable again.
And I love this comparison because it's so telling. Look at the crisis brain. Most of us go there, right? We get stuck asking why did this happen? We get emotional, we feel totally overwhelmed. But the fixer brain, it's a completely different operating system. It skips right over the why and jumps straight to, okay, what can be done? It's an instant shift from feeling to doing, from emotion to action.
Okay, but here's where the story takes a turn. Because that constant, relentless drive to act, it's not just a strength, it can be a compulsion. And this is where we start to peek behind the curtain and see the real cost, the dark side of having a brain that literally cannot rest if there's a problem left on the table. This quote just nails it. For a fixer, sitting still and doing nothing is pure torture. An unsolved problem isn't just sitting there quietly. Oh no, it's like a constant, buzzing, nagging noise in their head, and they have to make it stop. That's why they feel this intense pressure to find a solution right now, even when the best solution is just to wait it out. And that compulsion, that need to act, gets woven right into the fabric of their identity. See, being helpful isn't just something they do anymore. It becomes who they are. Their whole sense of value, their self-worth, gets tangled up in their ability to be useful. So they have to keep stepping in, keep solving problems, because that's how they feel needed. It's how they feel they have worth.
And this is where things get really complicated. This is where we see the fixer's greatest strength become their biggest liability. What happens when they try to apply that problem-solving logic to something that, well, just can't be fixed?
Because here's the thing. People aren't leaky faucets. They aren't broken appliances. You just can't treat a human being like a problem to be solved. Emotions, relationships, they aren't puzzles with a neat and tidy solution. And this is exactly where it all goes wrong. They take that amazing problem-solving brain and they point it at people. They try to fix someone's sadness or their messy relationships. But in their rush to find a solution, they completely miss what the other person actually needs, which, a lot of the time, is just for someone to listen. And then, of course, they get super frustrated when the person doesn't get better on their timeline, because they don't get it. Some things just aren't meant to be fixed. They're meant to be felt.
So when you boil it all down, being a fixer is the ultimate double-edged sword, isn't it? On one hand, you've got this incredible, powerful strength. It makes them the person you can always count on. But on the other hand, it comes with some serious hidden costs, both for the people around them and for themselves.
And that leaves us with one last kind of heavy question to think about. After a lifetime of being the strong one, the one everyone leans on, What happens when the fixer is the one who needs fixing?